I'm Joseph.
I'm Brandy.
And now we're going to learn about slices. So, slicing is really cool. It's what I prefer to use most of the time with my clients. It's a type of highlighting technique. It involves using straight pieces of hair. There's not much disconnection in them, so you get a more concentration of color. The thing that I like about them is you can make them thicker, so you get more concentration, or you can make them thin and get less concentration. So just because you're doing slices doesn't mean it's going to be dramatic. You can make them undramatic depending on how thick you make your subsection. So I've done a whole head thin slices and it looked like a natural baby light. Because I took them so thin. So a lot of people don't like slices because they don't think it's gonna look natural, but that comes down to your placement and how much hair that you're taking. So you can make something unnatural look very natural. They're easier to do, they're more stable, you get more control, things like that. But overall, in my opinion, slices are the way to go. So I'm going to teach you how to do them. Anything you need to add with slices?
Just like what you were saying, I prefer slices. It just depends on like how many you take in a row on how thick and dramatic it's going to be. But in my opinion, having slices also cancels out like a lot of like bleed marks. Like especially with foils. I mean, we can all put our foil up on there with weaves, but somehow it's a lot easier to have a bleed mark with the weave. And so I feel like with slices, it's a lot easier to not have a bleed mark.
I agree. And they're just funner and easier to do. You'll see. So have fun slicing. Alright, so what we're going to do today is sliced highlights. So there are two ways to put highlights in. You can either slice them or you can weave them. So what we're going to learn today is your basic slice. You can integrate both of them to give a more natural, bold look. It's more or less what your client wants. So with a sliced look, what we're looking for is a more dramatic look. You want a little more pop of color. You can make them super dramatic by making them mega thick, by doing foil on foil, or you can keep them still natural with taking tiny slices. So slices are real easy. In my experience, I discovered working from bottom to top is better, because sometimes when you work top to bottom, what happens is this top foil you have to fold over and then work below it, and then you're flipping them, and then what happens because of the curvature of the head, some of them want to fold back over while you're working, then you go to readjust them, and what happens is the foil slips or pulls a little bit. So you're actually working against yourself, while if you work from the bottom, they hang. So then when you work on your net section, nothing's in your way. And then you take that one down and it hangs. So that way you're not pulling on anything. You're not having to move anything. You're not having to adjust anything. It just flows more fluidly. But please do it however you prefer. If you find it easier working from top to bottom, that's the cool thing about hair, is you literally can make it your own. All right, so with the foil, what I do to begin with is I get my foil and then I fold it about a little ½ inch. Just like that. Make a little crease so it has a little bit of a lip. Cool. So when I pull these out, it's going to already be pre-creased and it's ready to go. Okay, so then I fold this back down. This makes it stronger up here because it's double folded. This is going to come in handy in a minute. All right, so how we get a slice is we comb out one of our sections. And then all I'm going to do is draw a straight line. You want to keep it nice and straight, because if it's crooked, anything like that, the foil is not going to have a proper home to lay down in. The trick to proper foiling placement is just clean sections. So you see I have a nice clean section right here. It's ready to go. All right. Now, a lot of people ask me, how much hair do you take in between, things like that? Well, you still have to follow the rules of color. So if we're working with bleach, it cannot be any bigger than 1/8 of an inch. Remember, 1/8 of an inch is probably the size of that first big tooth right here. So if you go any thicker than that, when you go to place your product on it, it's not going to properly penetrate. And so you might get worn spots, inconsistent bleaching from root to end, anything like that. So you want to keep it thin. If it's color, you could be 1/4. So that's usually about this big tooth and maybe 3 of the smaller ones. So about here. So it's a little thicker, but color absorbs, so it's better. How much hair you leave in between the foils, that's up to you and your client. So if they want something really dramatic, they want a lot of color, then you're gonna leave not so much hair in between every foil. If they want it to look more natural, then you're gonna keep your highlights very thin, so that way there's a lot more hair left in between the foils. But that's up to you and your client. Everybody has a different vision, things like that. You just need to know that for every action, there's a reaction. So if you don't leave a lot of hair in between the foils, she's gonna be mega blonde. So she's talking about, I want this to look sun-kissed and natural. That's probably not a good placement. But if you leave a lot of hair in between every foil, like I'm only doing like 3 on each side, then it's gonna be very minimal. Like, did she do something with her hair or did she not? So again, just pay attention to your placement. You're just gonna have to eye it and go back to the consultation to see what your client wants, okay? So like I said, slicing's easy. What we're gonna do, again, is we're gonna take a tiny one. We're gonna be doing bleach. So again, no bigger than that big tooth. I'm gonna make a clean line straight across, okay? So I like to separate the hair like that to check my line, to make sure it's nice and straight, which it is. So this is my piece of hair right here. As you can see, it's very thin. You can read right through it. What I like to do is I like to get my comb. They usually have words on it. I put my comb on the bottom piece. If I can read every single word through the hair, then that is perfect. As you can see my whole hand through it. So it's perfect. Now, I no longer use my comb. A lot of people put the foil on the comb and use it to hold it in place. But what happens is I like to get my highlights as close as I can to the root. So even using a thin metal rat tail, you have a bit of a lip. So you have this much space between the scalp and your highlights, which is not a lot. But if you look at a piece of foil, it is paper thin. So there's not much of a lip between the scalp and the hair. So the trick is to over direct this piece up to the ceiling, place your foil right dab in the middle. It cannot be off. It has to be right there in the center. You pull that hair down taut. If you pull it down tight enough, the foil will stay in place, but you can even adjust it to go up if it starts to slip. With that crease line on your foil, so about a 1/2 inch away from the face, that's where I apply my product. You never want to put the product right on the roots because then you'll get a line of demarcation or a hot line. So I want to put it about a 1/2 inch away from the roots. If I place enough product on there, I should be able to let go of my foil and it will stay. If I held it tight enough, got that foil up to the root and applied enough product, the foil will stay. So trust in your product. Then I can lift it up, evenly saturate the whole hair. If your hair is longer than the foil, all you gotta do is pick it up and move it up. If you keep the hair thin enough, you can fold that hair onto the foil and you'll still get even saturation because it's thin. If I have a huge chunk of hair and I try to do that, it's gonna be too thick, and then that's how I get lines of demarcation. Then I get product on the corner of my brush, and what I do is I feather it to the roots, okay? I never want to paint onto the roots, just always feather. Because bleach swells when it's in that foil, so it will push that product up and bleach the roots without it getting any bleed marks or anything like that. Now to fold it, you don't have to do this whole origami stuff. All you gotta do is fold it gently to the top. I place my finger right here in the middle. Notice I'm not folding it or creasing it right here. All I'm doing is slowly making sure the foil can shut, but it's still puffy right here. There's no crease. What happens when you put a crease is you're squeegeeing that product out of that one spot. So when it goes to process and everything like that, when you unfold that foil, you're gonna have a line right here. It's gonna be nice and blonde. You'll have a faint little brown or orange line, and then it'll be blonde again. So never fold your foils, okay? Or crease them. Now what you do is you get your comb, you go about half, and then you go about half of that. You gently press down. Again, I'm not folding. I don't want any crease. I'm just gently folding it over. And then I go where the hair ends, not where the foil ends, where the hair ends. I place my comb here. Now I can fold because there's no hair on this side of the foil, okay? You fold that down, and same thing over here. What this does is locks that foil in place. Then when I drop it, that foil isn't gonna go anywhere. So that is the safest, fastest way to do a slice. I will demo one more just so y'all get the idea. And y'all can see about hair placement in the middle. So I take another section of hair straight across. I'm doing about a 1/2 inch. I feel like that's a good amount of hair to leave in between foils, okay? Again, make sure that my line is nice and straight. Clip that hair up out of the way. Comb the hair for any knots. Then I'm gonna take my slice again, taking about a 1/8 piece, which is the big tooth of the comb, straight across. Pinch the hair on top of the comb, pull it down. Check to make sure the line is nice and straight. Make sure the hair is see-through. You can see everything right through that hair. Get another pre-folded foil. Sorry, they are stuck together because I'm not prepared. Okay, you get your crease. Fold it, put your comb down, hold the hair straight up, make sure it's nice and center, all the way up to that scalp. Pull the hair down. You can adjust your foil right here in the middle. Place your product about a 1/2 inch away from the roots. If it's on there right, it'll stay. Saturate the rest of the hair. Check your ends, make sure they get saturated. Put product on the tip of your comb or your brush and feather up. And then gently fold, hold, press gently, don't crease. Half, half, gently fold, into the hair, crease, into the hair, crease. There you go. Now you're a foiling champ. That is a slice.